Well, this morning's joke comes from Russell Moore, and they're not here today because Ron and Russell had 6 elementary age buddies of Russ Jr. stay at their house last night, so they kind of knew that it was going to be a late night. They didn't make it. But the joke starts with an engineer going to the pearly gates. And, oh, that's a cool picture. And the engineer goes to pearly gates, and who is it at the pearly gates? St. Peter. St. Peter said, well, you're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to go down to hell. And the guy said, oh, the engineer said, no, that's not true. I've led a good life. I know that I should be going to heaven. He said, nope, see you later. They went down to hell. And so 6 weeks later, God is reviewing the books. And sure enough, there was a mistake. The engineer was supposed to come up to heaven. So God calls Lucifer, and Lucifer answers, of course, and he says, you got to send the engineer back up here. There was a mistake we made. And Lucifer said, oh, no way. He said, that guy's got the water running again, the AC on. Next week he's going to hook up the internet, and he says even he can get an ice cream machine down here. And God says, you better send him back up or I'm going to sue you. And Lucifer smiles and laughs and says, yeah, good luck getting a lawyer. Now, I've heard that joke before, and since Russell, an attorney, sent it to me, I felt okay to give it. Usually I wouldn't give it. So let's say our statements of truth together, please. I am a child of God. I am deserving of good in my life. I am accepting my good now. You know, if we were created in a divine idea, or from a divine idea, created in the image and likeness of God, then why is it we don't always feel like that divine idea that we were created as? And why is it that we don't always express and live our life like that divine idea? Well, sure, some of you could answer and say, well, that's freedom of choice. You know, that's the free will that we have to make our own choices. And indeed it is that. But this is a Unity Church and not a Baptist or some other church that will tell you that going to blame it on sin, and teach as long as you ask for forgiveness and you're saved, then your sins will go away and your choices are all absolved, and that's okay. But it's not okay, because Unity believes that there has to be a change in action on our part. Sure, there has to be at first that thought that, this isn't working for me, I need to change. But the action has to follow. In Unity, we understand, just like Jesus understood, that our actions are not and cannot be continually blamed on bad choices, which do not outpicture the divine idea that we were all created to be. Each of us in here is on our own spiritual journey to bring more of that divine ideal that we were created in the image and likeness of God into fruition in our lives. And your outpicturing may look different on the outside. In fact, it definitely will, than anyone else's. Because you are a unique creation of God. Yet as we grow in our spiritual understanding, we realize that there is a responsibility on our part in the choices that we make. Not only a responsibility in the outcome of those choices on the outer, but more importantly on the growth these choices allow us to make from the inner. There's an old saying that I'm sure that you all have heard, the ends justifies the means, which what it's saying is, as long as you reach the goal that you have set to attain, that goal, as long as you achieve that goal, it doesn't matter how you attain it. This is, of course, a false saying, a false statement, and is focused totally on the outer results instead of inner growth of anyone involved, and everyone involved. Every one of us here would love to give a lot of money to our favorite charity, so that charity can continue to do the good works that it does, that we agree with. And every one of us can go out right now and rob a bank, give the money over to that charity, and accomplish what we set out to do. Yet the person who does this would be arrested and sent to prison for a long time for robbing the bank, The people that you rob could suffer from trauma, and the money you gave to the charity would also be taken back and returned to the bank. So in this example, you really did not even accomplish the goal that you had set out to do. And the reason you did not accomplish the goal of giving money to charity is because you did not give something that you had to give. Each one of us in this room right now has so much to give to this world. And each one of us has so much to give to this world that we don't need to be concerned about the things that we can't give. You've also heard the saying that to whom much is given, much is expected. Much has been given to each one of us by our inherent gift of life eternal. This is only a temporary stop. This physical existence is only a temporary stop for us in our life's journey. You have been selected to give your gifts to this world. Only you can give those gifts. The world right now that you are in needs your gifts. To express in the unique way that creation needs you to express in this now moment. There is not another time for us that we need to learn something about to express like our natural self right here and right now. All we have to do is go within before we express outside of us. There's a new poll out this week, I don't know if you saw it or not, that says that the percentage of Americans that say that religion is not that important has risen from 16% in 1999 to 21% today. The majority of people who answered this question that way in the poll were males making a minimum of $75,000 a year and under the age of 35. We all get a different perspective on how we look at spirituality from our human senses. And if we only listen to our human senses, then we are inclined to see only the immediate world we live in and miss the forest for the trees. The poll also recognizes that more than half of Americans are still hold religion as a major emphasis in their lives, and 41% held religion as very important in their lives. When we release God from our thoughts, we release new ideas and blessings that are ours as a birthright. We narrow our vision and become solely focused on ourselves and our life. But when we focus our thoughts on God and our connection to divine creation, then we begin expressing and living from our soul. And that expresses to the world for generations. The title of today's lesson is from the Bible. It's a quote from Jesus, says, "Let the dead bury their dead." And of course, today's daily word went right along with that, what we're focusing on. Of course, this is a well-known Bible quote that many of you have heard, yet sometimes the meaning gets lost in the wording and in the context that it's taken from. Jesus was using this statement as a teaching tool for his followers. They had just finished teaching and they were tired. They had just finished teaching among a crowd of people and they were on the move to another location when one of the disciples says to Jesus, and another of his disciples says to him, "Lord, permit me first to go and bury my father." Jesus responded by saying, "Follow me and let the dead bury their dead." At first, this seems like a curt response. That one's from Matthew. There's another version in Luke. But at first it seems like a curt response without feeling, especially at a time when surely the disciple was in grief. But Jesus was not being cruel. He was simply stating that the blessings that your Father here on earth has bestowed upon you during his time in this part of his life are with you still. You do not need to be with the body in which the blessings do not abide anymore. The blessings that your Father is lives on in you, as you, here on earth, and lives on in the universe as your Father still does. This is a lesson that is very comforting, yet when we have someone we love make their transition to another form of life, we are sad, because we're not going to see them anymore. But we would not know or understand this lesson unless we have looked within for the truth in the situation. There is also another lesson in this short phrase that Jesus the Christ shared with us and offered us, and it relates to the relationships we have during this part of life, during this physical existence. There have been relationships that each of us have had that could be detrimental to our well-being, either in the physical or the spiritual, or even both. You remember the old saying also that your parents used to tell you, well, what if your friend told you to jump off a bridge? Would you? There are some relationships that are not beneficial to us, and therefore not beneficial to the person that we have the relationship with. Immediately after this statement, Jesus and the disciples entered into a boat, or onto a boat, upon which Jesus fell asleep quickly. And I know that everybody remembers this story because while at sea, a storm came and engulfed the boat. The disciples worried that the boat would capsize and they would all drown. They awoke Jesus, upon which he calmed the sea. You see, we have a choice of where we are going to focus our energies in this life. Are we going to focus on the storm and surround ourselves with it? Or are we going to focus on the peace and express it in our lives? And where does that peace come? It comes from within. Sometimes we may have relationships where we think we can fix someone else. And sometimes we may have relationships where we think someone else can fix us. But neither are true, and we know it. Because the answers for your life lie within you. The answers for your life lie within you. The blessings that others give to the world, you will recognize by their manifestation. You can see the Christ in someone else as much as you want. You can tell that person that they have the Christ within them as much as you want. You can show the person how much by living the Christ from within you that they can benefit. But it always boils down to the person seeing and living from the Christ within themselves. We can never change someone else because they have to choose to change themselves. And the beauty about this is that at any time they can open that door to freedom for themselves with the simple change of a thought. So it does not behoove you to try to force someone to see the light if they are not willing and ready to see the light. This is one of the hardest things for me to realize before getting into ministry. I'd always thought growing up in the Unity that this is such a great teaching. It works so well in my life. Why wouldn't everyone be open to it? And obviously you can think that becoming a minister, that would drive you crazy if you think you're going to change the world without people wanting to change. So you have to come to the realization that you can change you and someone else can change themselves anytime they want, in the blink of an eye. But when we're hanging around another person, it can bring us down into thinking that there is no help in the world. And this is the teaching that let the dead bury their dead has for us in this living, in this part of our life, physical senses. Not because there is not life within them, because there is, but because they choose not to live the life that is within them. We cannot be around them. You know, all anonymous groups, as far as addiction, will tell the people involved in it, you can't hang out with those type of people anymore. If they're still into whatever their addiction is, you can't hang around with them anymore. There's a reason for that. Even on the outside level, they know that. But it's a spiritual teaching also. When we fully understand that there is no death in life, then we can see that the statement that Jesus made had to do solely with this physical experience part of life. That while we are living this part of life, that we have to honor people's choices and sometimes allow them to make their own mistakes, to miss the mark, to experience the sin, before they see the light. Sometimes we have to allow the dead to bury their dead. But always know that the universe is set up for us to succeed in every possible way. But we are all blessed, each one of us here. And we don't have time or the energy to try to save people who don't think they need to be saved. This was a big lesson for me, like I said, before I entered the ministry. And I had to learn. I had to learn. There are many of our friends that know that God is good and only good. Some of them are ready to accept this in their life at the current time and live from that knowing, while others are not ready yet. Let the dead bury their dead. And as you know, as I've updated you, on our son, even no matter how close the relationship is, you have to allow people to experience their own life. No matter how much teaching they have, you have to let people experience their own life. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't be there when they are ready to turn the corner. I'm not saying that at all. But if they're not ready to turn the corner, there ain't nothing you can do. I have a story for you about a person who felt all alone in the world but came to the realization that there was more to this life than just what we are physically experiencing. In this story, it's kind of comical, but it's also informative, and it's a true story, actually. It comes in the form of a letter to an insurance company. He had to write back to them because they wanted to know more details on what his claim was about. And it epitomizes where people are sometimes in life. It says, I'm writing in response to your request concerning Block 11 on the insurance form. It asks for the cause of injury, wherein I put trying to do the job alone. You said you needed more information, so I trust the following will suffice. I am a bricklayer by trade. On the date of injuries, I was working alone, laying brick on top of a 4-story building. At the end of the job, I had about 600 pounds of brick left over, so I thought I would lower the bricks on a pulley rather than making several trips to carry them down. I went down below, secured the rope at ground level, went back up, and loaded all the bricks into a barrel. And then I swung the barrel off the side of the building. Then I went back down, untied the rope, holding it tightly with my right hand so I would assure a slow descent. You can imagine my shock by being jerked off the ground so rapidly that I lost my presence of mind. Somewhere between the second and third floors, I collided with the barrel coming down. This explains the injury to my head and shoulders. Colliding with the barrel only slowed my ascent momentarily as I proceeded rapidly up the side of the building, not stopping until my right hand jammed in the pulley, which accounts for my broken thumb and finger. Regaining my presence of mind, I held tightly onto the rope. About the same time, however, the barrel hit the ground and the bottom fell out of the barrel. Devoid of the weight of the bricks, the barrel weighed about 35 to 40 pounds.
Oh no!
At this time, I began a rapid descent.
Oh.
I met the barrel somewhere between the second and third floors as it was coming up, which explains the injuries to my legs and knees. I landed on the ground on a pile of bricks, which caused minimal back injuries and internal injuries. Fortunately, they were only minimal. At this time, however, I'm sorry to say that I lost my presence of mind and let go of the rope. As you can imagine, the barrel crashed down on top of me. I'm happy to report, however, that I am finished trying to do the job alone. And doesn't that say a little bit about how many of us can get caught up trying to do the job alone without God's ever-present and willing help? We feel that we are responsible for everything that happens in our lives and everything that is supposed to happen. We take it all on like we are the ones doing everything. During this Lenten season, let's understand, let's know that we can allow God to be in charge at times in our lives. We can allow God to be a part of our lives at all the time. And when we know that the universe is set up for us to succeed, then we will have God in our lives, and we will express that in our lives. And then we will know that God is blessing us every moment, including right now. Thank you for being here.